All right, everyone. So I'm here with Dave Farina, also known as Professor Dave Explains, for all of you who are probably also subscribed to him in addition to me. I'm sure YouTube often recommends his content when my content is playing. YouTube's basically like, dude, like this guy's a lot better. He does a much better job, and he has more content. So why don't you watch him instead? So this is Professor Dave. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure, yeah.
All right. So I did a little bit of research in preparing to talk to you. Not a whole lot. I was like the kid who did like half his homework in high school. But there was this interview that you gave to Education Week in March of 2019. I'm sure that's ringing a bell.
I think so, yeah. I think I remember that one.
And when you gave that interview, according to Education Week, you had 345K subs at the time.
Yeah.
Since then, your channel has grown to what now, like 750K, is that right?
842 or something like that.
Wow, I'm way off. Where did I get seven? Anyway, wow, that is really impressive. Definitely big congratulations on all of your success. Yeah. And also, like to anyone watching, I mean, when I initiated this, of course, I reached out to Dave, and when I reached out to him, like I was very reluctant to send him that email because I thought it would be a waste of time. Like, why would this juggernaut of chemistry on YouTube take the time for the little guy who has roughly 7% of his audience? So, but to my
casual chat, it's like we're at a conference and we're having a beer and just a little chat, you know.
Damn, I wish I
no big.
I should have grabbed one out of the fridge. What the hell was I thinking?
I just finished one with dinner. Scarfed it down. That's why I'm feeling a little burpy.
What kind, if you don't mind me asking?
Racer 5.
I'm kind of beer illiterate. I've never heard of it.
I'm that beer snob that exclusively drinks the hoppiest IPAs imaginable.
All right. It's funny because I actually went to trivia night last night at a brewery. We go every Wednesday night, and from what I understand, they have some pretty good beers there, but I don't drink, so I just have to take people's word for it.
Where do you live again? Sorry, you're on the East Coast?
Yeah. I live in South Carolina.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I moved here from Florida about 10 months ago. But anyway, so another thing I wanted to sort of bring up is that your educational background. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a bachelor's in chemistry from Carleton College in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
And I will resist the urge to do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air dance. And then you also have a master's in chemistry and science education from Cal State, right?
So the master's is in science education. I attempted a master's in organic chemistry 2 times and dropped out 2 times.
Wow.
And then completed. Yeah, I did. First, I went to UC Santa Cruz straight out of undergrad, but I didn't make it very far. My second semester, I dropped out. Then when I was down here in Los Angeles, I gave a second attempt at organic chemistry, and I finished almost all of my academic requirements, but the research wasn't happening. It's a long story. My funding got cut, and then I was touring with a band, so I let it go. So no, yeah, I wasn't able to finish a master's in organic chemistry, but then I went and got one in science education, which is immeasurably easier. I can attest to that. So
sure.
Science education.
Right on. So that's a good segue into, like, I only have like 2 questions prepared that I want to ask. Everything else I think we just come up with off the cuff. But the question that I want to ask is, like, in one hand, you've got becoming a researcher and contributing to the body of scientific knowledge, and in the other, you've got finding the way to bridge the gap between people who don't understand or just hate science because they've had terrible, shitty teachers in the past. Like, you have both of those trajectories. It's like there's like the Robert Frost thing. Like, you have these 2 roads that you could take. Like, was there a moment in your life when you kind of, like, a definitive moment where you faced this crossroads and had to make that decision, and how did you navigate your way through that?
To be honest, the path of researcher was never even genuinely on the table. Even at age 18, before I even declared chemistry as a major, I decided I wanted to be a musician. So luckily I had the foresight, even at that age, to realize, look, I'm going to major in chemistry, not music. I'm going to major in chemistry because I just thought that was a very practical thing to do. And then throughout my 20s, even when I started grad school at Santa Cruz, I had I needed an excuse to move to California, and I could TA, so it was a job,
Sure.
and it was just something to do. I did not want to be a chemist. I never, ever in my whole life wanted to be a chemist. And I spent my entire 20s trying to become successful in music, but along the way to pay the bills, I would teach chemistry, tutor chemistry, which culminated eventually in this one position at this trade university where I lectured Chem for about 4 years. And that was the material that launched my channel. But no, it was always art first. Then it was simply that I was in this band from about 2012 to 2016, and that was really the impetus for starting the channel. Was I was looking for some passive income because we would be on the road touring all the time, and we wouldn't be generating enough income to like bring money home to pay our rent and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start this channel. Maybe I'll make some passive income that way. And then when that band tanked in 2016, I was devastated, but the channel was like sort of on the rise. And so I saw SciComm, science communication, as this opportunity to take my knowledge base, because I am very, very passionate about science. I'm very passionate about science conceptually. I enjoy the intellectual challenge of explaining science to people. I never, ever in my entire life wanted to be a scientist. And in fact, I'm horrible in the lab, terrible in the lab, don't like it, not good at it. But I saw it as this opportunity to sort of marry the worlds, because in SciComm, you can bring an element of artistry to it. So I got to sort of be my own boss, make my own content, put a little bit of artistry into it, but at the same time, fulfill this practical task of explaining science to people who need to understand it. So that was really the birth of my shift. I mean, really, it was only in 2016 that I even conceived of an A plan that was anything other than music. But luckily, I had started the channel because it's now working out, and so it's now the A plan. So,
eggs in multiple baskets. I like that. Very cool.
That's right.
One of the things that you said really kind of struck a chord with me, because like a lot of, the old phrase, like those that can't do teach and all that kind of stuff, the freaking losers who say that, it's like people don't understand, like the level of like creativity and decision making that goes into like crafting the perfect lesson, using the perfect analogy, using the perfect, image, and also like understanding that like your audience, like the differentiation in your instruction that you have to provide to really click with, as many people in that audience as possible. I don't think people can really grasp that unless they've been in a position such as yours, or perhaps to a lesser degree mine. So I'm very glad.
Yeah.
I'm very glad you laid it out there like that. Very cool.
Yeah, the teaching well is an intellectual challenge that rivals scientific research. You have a goal. You have to take a subject that you understand, and you have to make other people who don't understand it the way that you understand it. So there's a lot of, you have to make a lot of aesthetic decisions. The words that you choose, the visuals that you pair with the words that you choose, the information that you leave out, and the way that you sort of tier the layers of understanding. I think that a lot of brilliant scientists are very bad teachers for a lot of reasons, and that's fine. They're completely different skill sets. And I'm very impressed with scientists because I could never be one, and don't want to be. I don't want to. But I love the material. I love I love science, and I love learning about science, and I love making other people understand science. So
Sure, and getting other people excited about it too, I think, is a fun aspect of it. And it's funny because like you pointed out that sort of inverse relationship between how good you are at researching and how poor you are as a teacher. But it's also fascinating because like there's a select few individuals who are like they're like the Ben Franklin, like they're good at everything, they're good at both. When I was in college, Dr. Harry Croto, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's one of the like co-discoverers of fullerenes, those like C60 buckyballs. He gave a talk, and the way he presented was just so creative, so unique, and it was amazing. And he's obviously he's passed away now. May he rest in peace. But and then also you think of like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like there's a couple of those guys who are like not only good at researching, but just are phenomenal communicators and very prolific as well.
Yeah, I got lucky. Carleton College is undergrad only liberal arts institution, so the emphasis is on undergrad instruction. So the professors were predominantly very, very good teachers, and in particular the OChem teachers I had, in particular the OChem 1 teacher that I have, a guy named Dave Alberg. We were first name basis, so it was super, super chill college. But, I really appreciated his ability. There are teachers that teach to boost their own ego, to make themselves feel better about the fact that they understand something complicated that the students don't, and they do not do them any favors. They deliberately use complex and obscure language because they're not concerned with conveying the information. But there are teachers who understand this is the purpose. I have to make you understand it the way I understand it in my head, and that is the singular goal. And so when you have teachers, particularly in something that students traditionally find very, very difficult, like OChem, when I took OChem 1, I found it, a little bit difficult because it's very abstract, but I didn't find, I thought it was easier and way more fun than like analytical chemistry courses I had taken, because it was like, first of all, I get it because he explained it so well. And second of all, it's super, fun and interesting the way, learning about synthesis. But yeah, that was sort of where I was like, okay, this is awesome. Music is number one, but this is awesome.
Right, right. On a side note, what instrument do you play, or instruments?
I grew up playing classical piano, and then just before college, I switched over to drums. So I played drums in a variety of bands from 18 to until very recently.
Nice. Very cool. I'll have to fly out to LA. We can jam sometime.
What do you play?
I mess around on guitar and bass. I really like the bass a lot. I like slapping like funk style bass, like
nice.
Stuff like that. So, very cool. There was another thing that really struck out to me in that Education Week interview that you gave. You were talking about how you're pumping out like 5 high quality instructional videos per week, and you're working. It's not uncommon for you to work multiple 12 to 14 hour days. I guess the first question on that topic would be like, are you still putting in those kind of hours?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm starting to figure out ways to transition out of it, because the channel only about 6 months ago, the channel started bringing in. I think October of last year was the first month that my AdSense revenue exceeded my rent and bills. So,
October of last month? There hasn't been that October yet.
Of last year.
October of last year was the first time that your ad revenue exceeded your expenses?
Yes. Rent and bills. And I live in Los Angeles, so it's expensive. So, But... So
if I told you what my monthly was on my 15-year fixed rate mortgage, your head might explode. so cheap.
I mean, in Los Angeles, property ownership is a pipe dream. I can't even. I'm working on it. Hopefully in a couple years. But
dude, I mean, with the growth that you've had, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to take very long for you.
Right. That's the great thing about it, is like it was the 5-year plan, and so obviously for the first couple of years, first year you're making pennies a day. Then you're making dollars a day. Then you're making $30 a day. Then you're making $100 a day. So it's fairly exponential. And so now I'm sort of projecting over the next year or two, and I'm realizing, okay, now I'm finally at a place where the revenue is I can live off the revenue, which means over the next year I have a little bit of cash to play with in terms of hiring. So I've already begun outsourcing most of the writing. The writing is the easiest thing to outsource because they don't have to flawlessly match my aesthetic. I can take their scripts and I can modify them very easily. It doesn't take very long to edit scripts. But excuse me, the beer. Excuse me. The next big step in the next year, I need to hire a full-time animator, because that would cut my workload in half. Because obviously post-production is the majority of the workload.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm sort of projecting forward and seeing how I can start to now pull back from this insane workload and start to devote attention to other things, trying to become more of a public figure. I wrote a book. I want to give more talks. So I'm just, yeah, it's an exciting time. Like the 5-year plan has come to fruition, and I'm now in the embryonic stages of the next 5-year plan, which entails, expanding into all kinds of other things.
How do you keep the grind up? Like, how do you just keep yourself, focused and driven and motivated?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think that I have always been this way because, I mean, number one, I grew up in a very strict household, and I had to play the piano every day and swim practice and straight A's, and it was a very strict upbringing. So I learned discipline at a young age to a very extreme degree. And so that part is not that hard for me. But then when in early adulthood, as I started to make adult friends in my 20s in new cities and stuff, I kind of like looked at everybody's ethos, and I musicians that I was friends with, obviously most of my friends had always been people I was in bands with, and I would just sort of look at people and be like, so what do you do all the time? Like, it never quite computes with me when people are not particularly proactive or ambitious. I sort of just took it for granted that that's how most people are, but apparently that is not the case.
I've always kind of been that way too. It's like if you're not going for gold, dude, just don't show up to the track. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been very disciplined and goal oriented and hardworking. I will admit this got kicked up a notch though in 2016 because, the trajectory was for musical success, and the last band that I was in was on the way. We were, we had a lot of momentum, and we were touring and signed and all these things. And so when that fell apart in 2016 and the universe just shut a door in my face, I was, how old? I must have been, 32 at that time, and just felt like, wow, I have nothing to show for myself. Like, this is, it's not that I wasted a decade, but nothing happened.
Yeah, that is a very empty, hollow, just horrible feeling to have. I can imagine.
Yeah, and so I had a month or two of panic and wallowing in despair, but then I kind of said, look, all right, this other thing is working. This channel is maybe going to work, so I'm going to do this for 70 hours a week until it's good, because I don't like my life the way it is, and I refuse to be unsuccessful, so this is now we're going to do this, because what else am I going to do,
Yeah, really all you need to do to be super successful is just sort of, apply yourself in one direction, like harder than everybody else, or mostly everybody else. And, you'll obviously take lessons along the way, listen to the market, figure out, what people respond to, figure out, be self-critical, respond well to the criticism of others, and, all the rest of it. But, most importantly, just have that grind, have that dedication, have that, bigger picture goal, have that motivation. And also, in my case specifically, to have the support from your support system, including my family and the wife, the parents, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, work ethic is 90% of the formula.
Definitely.
There's 1,000 people doing what you do. Will you work harder than them?
Yeah.
If you won't, then good luck. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, totally. Very cool. So I listened to your. From about a month ago, you had a debate with Jesse Lee Peterson, and in that debate, you mentioned that you're married, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you have any children?
Yeah, we got a 10-month-old little boy.
Oh, congratulations, man! That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. You got kids as well, or?
Yes, I have a daughter who's 22 months old. She'll be 2 in August, late August, and I have another daughter on the way, due in October.
Mm-hmm. Wow! Congrats.
Thank you, man. It's pretty exciting stuff, but
it's wild. It's totally wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been thinking a lot, because I've been thinking a lot about, we already have a science sort of kit thing for her to open up on her second birthday. I'm sure you've been thinking a lot about the different sort of experiments and demonstrations that you're going to do and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, probably mostly books. He loves books. I don't like TV. Nah, doesn't care. Just books. You can put all these toys in front of him and he'll crawl over them to get a book. And he just when you read him a book, he's entranced. It's the only thing that calms him down. He's very spazzy.
Sure.
And just a book, and he's like really pays attention. It's really so. Yeah, for me too, it was books. I remember being very young, 3 or 4, and just super into books. And in fact, the first thing that made me be like, whoa, science, was like a book on the solar system for Christmas, when I was like, I don't know, 5 or something. And I just, I didn't, like, do you remember when you did not know that there was space and planets, and then you found out that there was space and planets, and you were like, this is what? And this is how big? And this is, like, it just, I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
Right.
And that was definitely the first thing where I was like, all right, this is awesome. Like,
yeah, especially like having kids, it's pretty amazing because, like, I've been a professional chemist for over 5 years. It's like, I've synthesized a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff, like a lot of, beautiful things, a lot of, really good things. But nothing comes close to like the complexity and the beauty of my children. You know what I mean? Like, that's not even in the same ballpark, not the same league, not even the same sport. Like, I think, oh man, I love my daughters. I think it's awesome.
It is something. I've been criticized as being very emotionally distant, and I
by whom?
Wasn't sure. Everybody, and rightfully so. Okay. I am emotionally distant. But, I'm very inert, and I'm very reclusive, and I'm very inward, and I like to be alone. I want to be alone. I alienate myself semi-deliberately from the world. And so I didn't really know how having a kid would be. I had like this little fear in the back of my head that like the kid comes and I'm like, whatever, So it was very relieving that was not the case, and that I look at them and I love them, innately.
Yeah, the instinct just kicks in, and then you just take it from there, right?
It's very baseline. I can tell that it is not. I don't have to intellectualize it. I don't have to analyze it. And I don't like babies at all. I don't like any other babies. I only like my baby. My baby is very cute, and I don't think that any other baby is cute. I know that's a personal. Other people think that their babies are cute, but
sure.
I don't like babies.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's very honest, and if anybody has a problem with that stance, then that's their problem, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I like your baby, and you should have your baby, and I'm so happy for you. I don't like your baby, though, and your baby probably annoys me in public.
Oh man, I love it. I love the candor.
Yeah.
I really do. I love that candor. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, but cool. So I had a couple of questions I was sort of drumming up in my head. Other than I mean, you seem like you genuinely really like what you do. You seem like you're not just forcefully grinding against your will at what you're doing, which is amazing to see in any line of work. I mean, even when seeing like a garbage man whistling while he's picking up the garbage is awesome. Certainly not equating you to a garbage man, but do you have any other because you mentioned music, you kind of answered the question that I'm thinking about ahead of time, but do you have any other hobbies or interests like outside of science education?
Yeah, I mean, I have hobbies. My hobbies would be things like rock climbing, and I love food and drink, and stuff like that. But in terms of passions, I mean, I identify as an artist first and foremost, and I still have dreams of doing music and making films and doing all those kinds of things. And my second 5-year plan includes finally getting to do those things, because once you have a little bit of a budget, you can make that kind of stuff happen. Right. So music is still in the works, but I would say that science communication it rivals, or at least has come to rival recently, that level of passion, because I'm very concerned with public science literacy. The level of confusion amongst the public about basic scientific principles, and the level of misinformation, and the level of the amount of hoaxes and the fraudulent stuff that you see on the internet, it worries me. and I love humanity, and I'm rooting for humanity. And so, like, I love music, but SciComm is the thing where I'm like, okay, I can make a difference here potentially. Like, I can help people understand science, which will in some way make the world better. You know what I mean? It's that thing where it's more of a purpose as opposed to art, which I'm just sort of fulfilling an innate desire to express myself. SciComm is like, I can help. Let me help here, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I totally understand. It's like, this is where I get my fulfillment. This is where, you know, like, I get my sense of purpose. And then, you know, if I'm, you know, a little fatigued from that, like after I've done that for 12 hours, then I'll, you know, grab my guitar and start, you know, just doing some you know, unwinding with some art and some pleasure and stuff like that. So definitely, I can completely understand that. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Everybody needs a sense of purpose. So,
who's your favorite scientist of all time?
Favorite scientist?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, one of the classics, maybe Galileo, because he was. I like to think of him as the first modern scientist, and also he's from Pisa, which is where my family is from.
Oh, right.
So I like to entertain this infantile fantasy that we're directly related, which I'm sure is not true.
I don't know. Maybe if you hop on that 23andMe, maybe you could figure it out.
I can't do it. I don't want them. I don't want anyone to have my genome.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Like there's actually like fine print that says that, like, they can share that with law enforcement. It's nutty stuff. Like sometimes, I mean, most of the time I'm pretty easygoing, but like with that one, the foil hat comes right on.
Yeah, I mean, and I deal with conspiracy theorists on a regular basis and anti-establishment loonies. And I'm a very rigidly practical guy, but look, were the United States to descend into an authoritarian nation, you better believe that stuff is going to get used with malicious intent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you've got a government that can imprison anyone they want for any reason, here's your DNA, here's your fingerprints, here's your face scan. We give them all this stuff on the frickin' phone. They've got it all.
Oh yeah, my Echo Dot, 3 feet away is picking up all of it.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, the only semblance of comfort that I get out of that is that just by the sheer, volume of information and the amount, like the size of the population, hundreds of millions of people, in a way that sort of tends to re-anonymize you and hopefully you get lost in the mix. Right. That's the only, I mean, again, like that doesn't negate any of the very valid points that you mentioned, but it does bring me some little
say someone has a motive to incriminate you specifically. Not that hard to do.
Yeah.
For other reasons, nobody's gonna pick somebody out of thin air to destroy.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's always those, especially like when you share information with people. Like lately, I've been doing like these live streams that are just open forum. All 5 concurrent viewers can watch and chime in with whatever question. And there are very few topics that I'll leave off the table. Like I'll respond about anything. So I get to like share my true thoughts about anything that the audience wants to know. Even if it has zero to do with chemistry. And sometimes I do sort of think about like, man, I'm really putting a lot of like information out in the world. I mean, like the company that I work for, which you could probably figure out if you were savvy enough, like, the exact city in which I live, like I've never disclosed all that stuff, but once you have like a long history of like dropping certain details about yourself, it's really not hard for someone with malicious intent to, to really do some damage to you, in which case, have that paintball gun loaded right next to my door ready to fire.
It's a weird world, man. I mean, I just did a debunk. I moved on from flat Earth, and I'm now doing this stuff on these alternative cosmologies, electric universe and plasma cosmology. I was anti-establishment nonsense for people who want to pretend they're smarter than Einstein. And I ruffled some feathers in this one channel. This guy, he's a lawyer that pretends to understand astrophysics. He has this dumb channel where he makes all these weird weather predictions and stuff, and he's got a pretty large following on YouTube, and these people are very toxic, and he himself emailed me physical threats, I was threatened very directly by email, and of course it was all talk because he didn't want me to issue a response video where I specifically exposed him as a fraud. But I did, and then nothing happened to me. So, it was clearly
well, that's good because, like, literally all he would have to do is issue a copyright strike, and then in order to defend it, you would actually have to give up your personal information, and then he could use that, and it actually goes to him, and then he would. Damn, I'm just revealing how to do this. I shouldn't have said that. But there have been. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You have to make content that is eligible for getting a copyright strike. So there's a lot of ways around that.
Really? I thought you could. I thought you could just anybody who wanted to could just falsely copyright strike anybody.
No, because no, the algorithm has to pick up a legitimate reuse of material.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for correcting me on that. I guess I just because
you can't just like willy nilly do that. Yeah.
Oh well, that's a relief then. I'm glad I was wrong about that. But that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Dealing with. Have you ever heard of James Randi?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, every now and again when I just am in a sour mood, like I'll just turn on one of those compilation videos of him like just flat out exposing all these psychics, and it just perks me right up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of falling into a little bit of that kind of a role. I'm interested in debunking things, and the book that I just wrote is focused largely on debunking predominantly the alt health industry.
What's the name of it? Let's plug it for all the tiny fraction of my viewers.
I just got word that the title was approved, but I don't think I'm allowed to share it yet. It's not going to be out for a while.
It's like a proprietary thing owned by the publishing company?
Well, no. I just they have a very specific like PR strategy that is like. They're like, don't talk about it yet. Talk about it at this particular time. So I don't know. Right now, all I'm allowed to say is like I wrote a book and it's coming out probably January.
To all you in the audience, Dave, he's got Facebook, he's got Instagram, he's got Twitter. So there's
plenty of ways. I'll be very vocal about it.
There's plenty of ways for you to keep up with him. Right up until he or the publishing company or whoever releases the title.
You'll be hearing about it. Yeah. No, I'm very excited about it. Yeah, I'm sort of a critique of like the alt health industry and things like quantum mysticism and
all this woo nonsense.
All the woo woo. Yeah, I'm sort of assessing I look at the way the public views scientific principles, specifically the ways that they misinterpret or misunderstand science, and I try to diagnose why. Right. So for a particular example, they don't understand what this word means. It's because of this false connotation from this other context that they're transferring over to that. I try to diagnose, like when the public is predominantly wrong about something, there's a reason, right? It's the linguistic thing, or it's a cultural thing, or why is the public wrong about this thing, what this word means, or this topic, So I try to deconstruct it and explain it back so that people can go, oh, yeah, that is why I think that's what that means, but it's not. So
gotcha.
Maybe I can update my understanding.
I'm just curious, how did the Jesse Lee Peterson thing come about? Did you reach out to him or did he reach out to you? Like, how did that come together?
Nah, just modern day debate. So I got into it with the flat earthers because the flat earthers did this thing. They did a live stream on a video of mine and were super insulting. So I did a response video because I'm very vindictive and they were really, really rude to me. So I just eviscerated that channel. And now it's got like 3 million views. It's like one of the most viewed flat earth debunks. So I did a couple of flat earth things, and then the modern day debates reached out to me first to see if I wanted to debate Kent Hovind, who's a young earth creationist. So he does a lot of damage, so I thought, all right, I'll debate this guy. And then he reached out to me again to see if I wanted to talk to this Jesse Lee Peterson guy. I'd never heard of him, so I looked him up and was just like completely baffled that this was a real person. He's just so like batshit insane nonsense pouring out of his mouth nonstop. So I was like, all right, this will be fun, just like a dumb, sparring match, I guess. So
Oh,
yeah, that was
the
just
goal. So the goal. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the goal of that wasn't necessarily to, because like there's this idea that I'm actually kind of sympathetic to, which is that like just by virtue of stepping onto the debate stage with somebody, like sharing the debate stage with somebody, there's the idea that you are implicitly communicating to the audience that there is some merit to the opponent's position, that there is some question, like legitimate question to be looked at. And you're saying that that really wasn't necessarily the goal with JLP?
Well, I don't look at it that way. I mean, a lot of people say that, and I think that there's some justification in that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you look at somebody like Kent Hovind, the young Earth creationist, this is a guy who's a con man who lies to make money. Lies to religiously indoctrinated people to earn money. And so when you have somebody like that, I just feel strongly that somebody should be doing something about it. Now, you could go either way, right? You can make the argument that somebody should take him on and destroy all of his talking points, which I feel I largely did to an extent. Or you can take the point of view of what you just said. I think they're both defensible views. But with somebody like Jesse, it was just like, I'm just trying to be more of a public figure, so it's just sparring practice. It wasn't even framed as a debate. He was like, do you want to have a discussion with this guy? I was like, all right, this guy's insane. I'll just humiliate him for 90 minutes. And that's all that happened.
My favorite part, because like what I took away from that exchange was like I was like thoroughly entertained. Like I don't know if that was the goal, but like that was the outcome, at least in my mind. Like I thought it was a really funny, really entertaining exchange. And the funniest part, like the best part in my opinion, was it started to get a little personal. He was saying some stuff about how he sees your mother in you and like just all kinds of like inappropriate stuff. And then
he was very threatened.
Right, but that wasn't the funniest part. The funniest part is when you kind of turned it around and asked him about his relationship with his parents, and you're like, "Are your parents still alive?" And then his reply was, "No, they dead."
I got a great relationship with my parents. Oh yeah, no, they did.
Dude, that had me like I was at work, I was at my desk, and it was like. You could hear a pin drop, and it was all that I could do not to just burst out laughing when I heard that.
Yeah, he's a buffoon, and I made him look like a buffoon. But what was really disheartening, way more than with Kent Hovind, because with Kent Hovind, he's a con man, but he's clever. So, like, if you're really, really uneducated and really, really religiously indoctrinated, and let's face it, very unintelligent as well, I can see how his talking points would fool you. I get it. I get how his deliberate misrepresentations of biology could trick you. Mm-hmm. But with someone like Jesse, I was just like, how could anybody in the world take this guy seriously? He just says, Satan is your daddy, and he just has dumb catchphrases that he shouts.
Amazing.
He's just clearly such a caricature of a buffoon. Like, you don't even think he's real. Like, I think he has a mental disability or something. But after that debate, the flood of toxic comments from just disgusting, bigoted people was so intense that I had to disable comments on that video. It's the first time I've ever done that. I
noticed that, and I read your explanation as to why. I think with Jesse Lee Peterson, I think like obviously like there's a lot of hyperbolic language, and I'm not even going to try to speculate as to what could be going on inside of his head, right? Although, peeling the hyperbole back, I mean, while I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, there are some things that he says, or at least some larger, broader points that he makes that are somewhat merited. Like, for instance, like I do believe, because I'm a strong, like family-oriented guy. It's one of the reasons why like my YouTube just falls off flat. Like I have like really, really long lapses in productivity, and then eventually I'll come back to it, is because like I am a huge proponent of the family. I think it is a very, very important institution. So like the argument for like, family togetherness, pair bonding, monogamy, and things like that, I think those all actually do have empirical scientific data to support them. But
that's not what he said.
But the way that the way that he presented it, I think, was just extremely hyperbolic. I mean, the one thing that he said was that children of two-parent homes grow up better off than children of single-parent homes. That was one thing he said. What he didn't say was there's this many times less suicides, this many times less, drug addictions and blah, 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 which I think is all actually empirically, I don't have the citation on me, I wish I did. But like,
but he was using statistics that refer to out of wedlock, children born out of wedlock, which does not mean single. He was citing statistics that refer to out of wedlock births, which does not mean single.
So out of wedlock could mean like, people are in like a committed relationship. They're just not married in the context of like the state, definition of marriage. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Unmarried people that have children. Black people disproportionately don't marry.
Interesting.
As opposed to white people. And it's not surprising. Marriage is promoted as a white girl's chance to be a princess for a day. You know what I mean? Like this is...
No, I have to push back against that. Marriage actually has very noble and very practical origins, and it predated the state. Like before the state, I mean, again, I don't think the state should be involved in marriage.
I understand that marriage predates the United States of America, but I'm just saying that it is a man-made institution that only holds as much weight as you yourself put into it, right? So if you recognize marriage as whatever you want to recognize it as, that's fine. You know what I mean? But it doesn't inherently or implicitly mean anything. You know, we place meaning upon it, right? Whereas something like two parents raising a child versus one, this is something that has a biological significance and has for thousands of years before human civilization existed.
I think
there's a biological basis for that.
Right. Yeah, I just like by marriage, I basically just meant in like the broad sense, like people who are like pair bonded, monogamy, like that kind of thing. Like that, you don't necessarily have to have you get married in front of the officiant, and you say I do. Like there's obviously no like that particular ceremony doesn't somehow magically change the trajectory of your life and that of your descendants. That's certainly not the position that I'm trying to take.
But out of wedlock,
right.
But out of wedlock is a term that distinguishes only that. Right. There's plenty of people who are monogamous, pair bonded, whatever you want to call it, that have children and are not married.
Right. So that's not a good metric. We need a better metric. We need like the like single parent versus multiple parent. Like that would be.
That's why I pushed back on that citation, and it all just devolved from there into increasingly more and more nonsensical and idiotic statements from him. You know what I mean? So if he had summarized it in a way that you're summarizing it, then you could have had a discussion about it.
Sure.
But he misrepresented a statistic, piled on statistics on top of that had nothing to do with anything. He was talking about drug use, crime, but not citing any separate statistics for that.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing that I absolutely couldn't side with him on, is that psychotropic medications help lots of people. Like, a lot of people benefit from psychotropic medications. They allow people who are desperately mentally ill to live somewhat normal lives. And I think to toss that aside and reduce that to, kids get it, they get put on Ritalin, which is a problem, of course, and then become addicted to drugs. I think like that's obviously like a very, crude way of boiling the entire field of psychiatry, which I think you did a very good job pointing out. So.
Yeah. But that's the point. He is someone that is not interested in facts. He's interested in the narrative. He's interested in pushing his agenda, which he gets from, evangelical conservatives. And quite frankly, is the only reason he became successful, because people like the idea that a black person would say those things, because it absolves racist white evangelical conservatives of their own racism. And that's why he has become successful. It's just, he's a bizarre anti-black person.
I think one of the other things too. This is one thing that sort of, again, you mentioned it was not really like a formal debate from the beginning. So I can't really hold anybody to the fire for this. But when people are debating, which is what the two of you were doing, I mean, it may not have been called that, or it may have been called a discussion or whatever. But when people don't, when people start jumping in, because I believe the first question was like, to what degree do you think racism is a problem, and yada yada. Like, I think it's so important. I think like 95% of the problems that people have when they're squaring off with each other on a debate stage is the skipping of the step that is to define the terms. Do you know what I mean? Like I think if you and he were able to at least come to an agreement, because that right off the bat, coming to an agreement kind of brings a sense of, peace and civility to the whole thing. So to be able to like agree on terms with somebody, I think is a very crucial step, because, at some point you could just derail to the point where you're both, I'm not necessarily talking about you and him, but just in general, like you can get to the point where you and your opponent are both right, but you're just operating on different wavelengths, different definitions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something that you could do with a genuine person that has a genuine defensible belief that you're having a genuine discussion with. That's not something you can do with an evangelical, propagandist like him. He's got his talking points that he needs to rattle off. He doesn't care an ounce about reality. He's just raking in the dough. So, I mean, the irony of this guy saying that racism doesn't exist, police brutality towards black people doesn't exist, and then like a couple weeks or a month later, all of this. I mean, it's just like, dude, you're living in a fantasy world. What are you talking about? Racism doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Police brutality doesn't exist, when we are currently protesting police brutality at protests where police brutality is happening. It's just like, get with the program, man. You know what I mean? I can't respect somebody that can't acknowledge the blatant aspects of reality. I mean, same with young Earth creationism, same with flat earthers. I mean, you're not in the real world.
Who's your next target?
Well, I'm still working on these alternative cosmology guys. I'm going to debunk this thing called the Sapphire Project that they all whine about. They go, oh, they're doing science at the Sapphire Project, and this other guy, I have to debunk a little more of that, because I really overturned a weird stone, because this stuff with the electric universe is just blatant, frivolous pseudoscience, but it has gone completely unchallenged because it's so esoteric that physicists and science-minded people don't care, because they're like, oh, this is dumb fantasy. But normal people don't really necessarily get into it. It takes a certain personality to kind of get into it. So like debunkers haven't really touched it yet. So when I did my first debunk, I sort of like opened up the floodgates, and I got a lot of weirdos.
How harmful would you say? I mean, obviously it's not a net positive, but like, I think about it compared to something like, I don't know, like Scientology or something, which actually like, they threaten people, they stalk people, they like really like, they go after your family, like they do whatever they can to like silence critics. And like, that Leah Remini show on Hulu I watched, was like, wow, this is pretty crazy stuff. Like, but then
nuts. I watched that show too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty nutty shit.
Yeah.
But like when you talk about this cosmology stuff, it's like, it's just a couple of nerds, just spreading misinformation, but it doesn't really do any harm to them except maybe for their wallet. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts. I mean, first of all, Scientology is immeasurably worse. They have ruined so many lives, and Scientology is evil, and I can't wait till it's over, and I believe I will be alive for that, and I can't wait. I hate Scientology.
We're going to pop champagne corks when that happens.
Hell yes. But in regards to what you're saying, you're right that something like Electric Universe or even Flat Earth or something like that doesn't do as much tangible harm as, say, something like the anti-vax movement or something like that.
Right, yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
It does do harm, though. It does do harm because it has a negative impact on public perception of science. What it does is it promotes an anti-establishment narrative that many people are already predisposed to it, because we think of like environmental damage done by corporations over the past 50 years and the government. And like we just, in our head somewhere, there's this little thing that's like, ooh, the man. I hate the man. You know what I'm talking about? Everybody has it to some degree.
Oh, I have a big part of that in my mind, for sure.
Yeah, I do too. But the problem is that when you lack the education and the knowledge base to be able to discern between truly the man or just what some propaganda tells you is the man, you become very easy to control. So take these alternate cosmologies. What they do is they say, okay, mainstream science, which is not a real thing, but established astrophysics is wrong and dumb. Einstein was wrong and dumb. All of these people, these respected scientists that have produced a body of science that has led to the production of all this incredible technology that we all enjoy, wrong and dumb. Guess who's right, though? These rogue, upstart little rebels on the internet with their little YouTube channel that are uncovering the truth, right? It's the same with alt health, right? Alt health says those mean, bad pharmaceutical industries. Not that the pharmaceutical industry is immune to criticism. They do unethical things, but it's just completely backwards. It is a blatant marketing tactic to go mean, bad pharmaceutical industry, or mean, bad mainstream science. Me, good underdog truth man, buy what I'm selling.
It's funny you mentioned. Funny you mention that, because the work that I actually do for my full-time job is R&D on active pharmaceutical ingredients.
Sure. I mean, you are well aware of. Again, pharmaceutical industry is not immune to criticism, but the way that the public criticizes the pharmaceutical industry is almost always completely misled and just utterly baseless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like Shkreli, for instance. I mean, that guy, again, he's got a lot of abrasiveness to him, but he raised the price of this drug to a price that's actually comparable to other drugs like it, and got just reamed by the media for it. He's like the most hated man in the world. Now he's in jail for, I guess, lying to investors or something. But
right.
But like when you hear his defense of the price hike, it's like, okay, like when you put it in that context where like you're talking about like a rare disease drug, you need to profit off of it to do R&D, to justify that over making a drug for that you can make for a lot of people, like an asthma drug or an antidepressant or something. Like he actually puts it, either he's like the best, like sophist in the world, or he actually like sounds pretty reasonable once you get past like the arrogance and the the craziness and all that.
The problem is that he's a sleazebag and he's just a jerk anyway. So like that, it doesn't come out right out of his mouth.
It's not good for the image.
Yeah. But it's true. People do not understand pharma profit margins. But it's actually a chunk of my book is explaining not just how the pharmaceutical industry operates, but also the justification for these profit margins. If you got to spend $1 to $2 billion to bring a drug to market because 9 out of 10 of them fail, you got to have a higher profit margin.
And over a decade too, by the way, not just the money, but the time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I want people to understand science, right? And any kind of anti-establishment narrative that's out there that says this industry is evil, these people are wrong. The ones that studied science their whole lives and are producing technology enabling science, wrong, dumb, evil. You know what I mean? This is a very damaging narrative for society.
Totally. The only sort of devil's advocate thing that I could respond to that with would be like, there have been a lot of embarrassingly false apocalyptic predictions made by like real scientists.
Really? I did not know they were in the business of
apocalypse
predictions.
Apocalyptic, sorry. I mean, like, we're going to run out of oil by this time. We're going to have an average temperature of like 200 C by this time. It's like a lot of stuff that scientists have predicted about like our resources, our climate, our things. Like a lot of those predictions. I mean, I don't know, like of all the predictions, like it's probably a very, very tiny percentage of them, but they do kind of make waves. Like, I'm sure there are websites out there that have like a long list of like well-respected scientists who have made predictions that have turned out to become false by like a large margin too. So, while I think it's more like more than the people, it's like the process. It's like the syllogisms. It's like the critical thinking. You have a question, you gather data, you hypothesize. Like, I think a lot of people just need to be peeled back to that basic like level of like philosophical reasoning and thinking to avoid logical fallacies and this and that.
But the media is also to blame because it's a vicious cycle. The media, web-based media needs clicks, and what are they gonna what provocative title can they choose? So one trend is everything we knew about physics is wrong. This one discovery, like it's a very very popular. It's all it is click me, and then once you read it, hopefully it backpedals and gives you sort of a more measured appraisal of whatever the thing is that they're talking about. Sometimes not even. But the problem is that people read the headline and that's it. They maybe don't even click on it. Maybe they click on it and read the first sentence.
I've seen that on Facebook a lot. People will comment and it's like, dude, did you read the article?
It's literally a fake article. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite is the trend of people falling for Onion article. That's not really related to this,
No, definitely.
Yeah.
But universities actually have their own PR departments too, and oftentimes, by the time the title of the article comes out, it really has very little to do with the contents of the experiment. Like for instance, there was this one thing. It was like vitamins don't work, case closed. And you look at their test subject, and it's like Alzheimer's patients who had no reduction in cognitive decline after they took vitamins. It's like, dude, vitamins isn't going to stop that. Like the best vitamins in the world aren't going to stop that. The conclusion, to draw the conclusion that vitamins don't work based on that data with that sort of sample size and that's like really like horribly sick group of people is so like irresponsible and just downright despicable in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really a big problem. We're seeing this in every sector of our culture. We're seeing it in the news. We're seeing it in the media. We're seeing it in art. We're seeing it in entertainment. We're seeing it in the celebrities that we choose to promote. It's just everything is becoming streamlined to just these empty, bite-sized, clickable memes. And it's unsubstantive. We don't have substance in our news. We don't have substance in our media. We don't have substance in our art any longer, at least not that which is mass-produced. And it is manufacturing a dumber, less capable populace. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know if I have the basis to really stand behind that statement.
I definitely get that. I get that feeling too. And, it's just amazing that like these reputable news sources, can publish an article that's proven to be false. And then, like for instance, there's the one that's coming up in my mind was like ABC News. They showed footage of a Kentucky shooting range at night. Like they had some celebration where they were shooting a lot of machine guns at a Kentucky shooting range at night, and they falsely portrayed that to be like the Iraq-Syria border. And then, like it was debunked. It was exposed. And then all they did was just issue a tweet. And that was it. Like they didn't come on their
damage is done.
They didn't come on their program the following day to say, listen, like we apologize, we got this wrong. The third party company that we hired to fact check, did blah blah blah. Like there was none of that. It was one tweet, and then the 24-hour news cycle just expired, and then it was on to the next clickbait headline.
Yeah. See, the big problem is that so much of what you can find on the internet and on the news and so forth is now not true. Maybe most, I don't know, but such a huge proportion that people are fatigued and they now know implicitly not to trust most of the things they hear. So the ramification of that is that you can report objectively factual information and people will just reject it because we are at this point now where so much is not true that it's justifiable to just reject something that you don't like. There's no more. There are no more sources that are unanimously agreed upon to be true.
Yeah, and also when there's more of a demand for drama and hysteria than there is objective truth, it becomes, and then you have some people saying that there is no objective truth. It's like, okay, well, let's pump the brakes on that one.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's a pretty bold philosophical statement.
Yeah. When people say that there's no such thing as truth, I always ask them, is that a true statement? Right. But anyway, listen, man, we're closing in on an hour, so I'm sure you probably want to get back, maybe crack open a second one of those beers that you just had. So,
possibly.
But listen,
now that I'm all
listen, Dave, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, like 1,000 times. Thank you for taking the time today. Anything you wanted to say to to my tiny audience before we close for today?
Come check me out, Professor Dave Explains, and yeah,
Professor Dave Explains on YouTube. He's got merch. He's got T-shirts and hats. Or you got hats, right?
No hats. Yeah, I just made a few shirts and was like, maybe people will buy them, and they don't.
Okay, yeah, hop on Professor Dave Explains YouTube channel, buy a hat, subscribe, smash the like button on all of his videos. He's also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Not hard to find him at all. So do your thing. Help promote the good word of getting science out there and battling the pseudo-intellectuals, as they were.
That's right.
All right. Bye, thanks, man.